Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel has dropped charges against people that she rounded up recently for protesting against Israel's war in Gaza. Roll F2 here, this VO. You guys might remember this kind of viral footage that went around of the Michigan police, backed up by the FBI, literally smashing their way into people's homes, dragging people off, and then charging them with serious felonies, and keeping them behind bars for quite some time. She has now dropped those charges, and so we are joined by Henry McKean Shapiro, who was one of the protesters who was rounded up by Nessel and her federal accomplices. Ended up spending, Henry, 4 days behind bars before you were released? Is that right?
Yeah, actually, just a bit of the correction is that the felony charges that were just dropped against me and 6 others yesterday are unrelated to the FBI raid. So it's the same prosecutor for them, but our charges come from back in September related to the U of M encampment.
Yeah. So actually, walk us through why we ended up seeing these raids recently. So, what charges resulted from the original encampment, and what's the
relationship between both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in September of 2024, Dana Nessel dropped 11 charges against people for their involvement in the U of M encampment, 7 of which were felony charges, and all of us, including myself, had felony resisting and obstructing arrest and misdemeanor trespassing. And 4 others got various different kinds of misdemeanors, ranging from stepping on a $2 small Israel flag to other just ridiculous ones like trespassing. And Dana Nessel has also continued to do charges against people for their involvement in pro-Palestine activism at U of M. So in January, she dropped charges against people who participated in a die-in demonstration on the UMich Diag at the beginning of the school year. And then on April 23rd, she requested a judicial warrant which authorized the FBI and a bunch of different police precincts from across the state to raid the homes of several prominent pro-Palestine activists.
And so what are the actual charges? Like, how is she trying to take political activism on a college campus and transform it into felonies? What does the paperwork look like there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because it's really quite ridiculous the way she's trying to do it. So for these raids that happened on April 23rd, so Michigan actually has a bit of a loophole when it offers warrants to people who are being searched, which is that they don't have to list the probable cause for why they obtained the search warrant. So it's actually extremely unclear to even the people who were searched what purpose or what they're even going to be charged with. They, in the press releases, have mentioned multi-jurisdictional vandalism, which is not an actual legal term, but it's clear that they're trying to quickly manufacture consent for the Attorney General's office handling these cases and to bring in the FBI, which is usually not brought in to handle small protest-related issues within the state. So it's so far she's mentioned this multi-jurisdictional vandalism thing, which we know is really just kind of a ridiculous way of trying to justify her presence across the state and her cooperation with the Trump administration, FBI.
Right. And to set the context, right, there was some frustration among a lot of people that local police, they were not sufficiently aggressive enough against protesters. Like they wanted more protester blood. The Guardian had a good piece on this recently where they say the Guardian's investigation revealed concrete evidence of conflicts that defense attorneys argued factored into the prosecutions. Among the findings, the story revealed AG Nessel's office charged pro-Palestinian protesters at a higher rate than other state prosecutors. Nessel was recruited by university regents who were frustrated by local prosecutors' unwillingness to crack down on most of the students arrested to take over the case and file charges. 3 people with direct knowledge of the decision told The Guardian at the time. The investigation also found that 6 of 8 regents contributed more than $33,000 combined to Nessel's campaigns. Additionally, her office hired a regent's law firm to handle major state cases, and the same regent co-chaired her 2018 campaign. And so if people remember, there was a multi-day controversy when Rashida Tlaib said that she felt like Dana Nessel's office was biased against Michigan protesters. And she said it was because, in her understanding, Nessel was getting pressure from the regent's office. She was then accused of anti-Semitism, saying that
By Dana Nessel.
right, by Dana Nessel and then by CNN,
Yep.
who repeated for many days that charge and then wrote stories about how she wasn't apologizing for her anti-Semitism. Their argument was, well, Dana Nessel is Jewish, and so Rashida Tlaib is saying that Nessel is biased because Dana Nessel is Jewish. When Rashida Tlaib gave the reason that she said why Nessel was biased, and that was because she was being pressured by the regents. So now we have this investigation that shows that, in fact, the regents of the university were indeed upset that local police and local prosecutors weren't, bringing the hammer down hard enough on you and fellow protesters, and so they roped Dana Nessel into this. So can you talk about what your interactions were like, with local police and prosecutors versus now with the state and the FBI?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing it's just a total circus. In fact, a huge factor of why Nessel likely dropped the charges is the fact that it's so unclear why she was taking up this case to begin with. In fact, even came out that seems like our local prosecutor, Ellie Savitt, had never even received the charges from the encampment. And something that had become really clear to the Attorney General's office in this ongoing, our lawyers had filed a motion to recuse Dana Nessel for, impropriety in taking these cases and strong, both real and appearance of anti-Arab and anti-Muslim bias, is the fact that if she was to continue with this case, it would have opened up her office into evidentiary hearing and opened them up to discovery to figure out exactly why they picked up these charges, because it doesn't make any sense. This was not even remotely a multi-jurisdictional case. It all happened within the UMich Diag, which is about, like 200 square feet. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, like this multi-jurisdictional vandalism. You guys were literally camped in one place.
Weird.
That's the whole thing. It was an encampment.
Right. It's totally ridiculous. And, like you mentioned before, it's just clearly a result of the regents not getting the response that they wanted from Ellie Savitt, the sufficient response that they had wanted to a previous protest that happened in November 2023. And, the links just couldn't be clear. Even on the eve of Dana Nessel dropping the decision to charge those of us from the encampment, just the day before, Regent Jordan Acker had posted a selfie on Instagram with himself, Dana Nessel, and Jeremy Moss, who are like a kind of like Zionist Three Stooges in Michigan politics. So it's just very clear. And Mark Bernstein, who you mentioned, he was a co-chair of Dana Nessel's campaign, has given tens of thousands of dollars in financial contributions to her campaign. And it's clear that Dana Nessel has basically just been recruited by them due to their dissatisfaction with Ellie Savitt's insufficient zeal for prosecuting pro-Palestine protesters at U of M.
Last question for me is just basically what this has been like for you, this crazy experience. Any major takeaways or any reflections on it?
I think right now those of us who just had our charges just dropped are obviously very personally relieved. But I think we're also very invigorated with, I think, what we see as a massive victory for pro-Palestine activism, not just in Michigan, but nationwide, which is to show that you can't, build up these ridiculous charges against pro-Palestine protesters and expect to get away with it. That, unlike what might have been the case 3 years ago, that taking such a vigorous stance against anti-genocide protesters is not acceptable with the public, and showing that you can't get away with just concocting some ridiculous narrative about anti-Semitic protesters is just not gonna work. So the fact that we were able to hold on long enough for her office to drop the charges under the massive amount of popular pressure, we see as a huge victory, and we're very proud of that.
And I'm curious, when you were in jail, what did the other folks who were in there with you say when they're like, what are you here for? And you're like, protesting the war, genocide in Gaza.
No, I mean, obviously all of them. I didn't meet a single person there that wasn't supportive of our cause. I mean, all of the, a lot of them not a fan of the local prosecutors as well. A lot of people there who had been, screwed over by them for just simple things such as, unpaid parking tickets or just being unable to meet bail. And in general, they were super, a lot of them even had actually been towards the encampment and mentioned that to me. And I've also been targeted by University of Michigan police before, and were very sympathetic to our cause, which was very comforting for those 4 days I was there.
Cool. All right, well, I'm glad you're out. Yeah, it must be a relief. Were you getting threats from the prosecutors? Like, this is the amount of, like, you're going to spend years if you don't, plead down or something?
No, actually, it's interesting that wasn't the kind of thing that they were even looking for. And most of all, they wanted us to accept a plea that would have required giving them some kind of political victory, like saying, we admit that we did not participate in peaceful protest. And we didn't want to do that because, first of all, it could be like legally problematic for us down the line, but also we didn't want to. I mean, she's clearly fishing for that for a reason, and probably as an excuse to continue pushing charges against people who have been speaking out against U of M's complicity in genocide.
Oh, so they were offering, if you would admit that you were violent, that then they would give you no time, basically, but you would get a charge on your record?
Or that it would be like the charge would be, there would be a diversion of the charge with time. But like it was very clear that the admission of her political agenda was like the most important demand for coming from her office.
Right. Well, glad you guys stood up for yourselves and didn't capitulate to that. Thanks, Henry.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on.
All right, take it easy.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.